Hot takes are one of my favorite part about sports. It allows you to take bold, crazy, wild thoughts that you have about what's going to happen in a sport and basically make it sound somewhat reasonable using just a hair of logic that you've seen somewhere. And so today, I want to do my top 5 hot takes on the NFL draft in 2024. Also, apologies, I got a very scratchy voice. This is in the middle of March Madness and I'm streaming every single March Madness game all March Madness long, and so my voice is basically shot. Apologies, but we're going to power through this anyway. And before we get into the video, I wanted to ask you to please subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications. It really helps us out. If you're a fan of the NFL, you'll love this channel as we release videos every Tuesday and Friday, all NFL season long, so you'll want to check that out, and I promise I don't always have this scratchy a voice. Now, let's get back to the video. Okay, so at hot take number 1, I have the New York Jets either trading up for a second first-round pick or trading for Davante Adams. Now, the New York Jets 2 years ago basically built their team off of the draft. They drafted Jermaine Johnson, Sauce Gardner, and Garrett Wilson all in the first round, along with Breece Hall early in the second round, which really jump-started this team to being the team that ended up going after Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. Now, the problem with the New York Jets is they are very pot committed into the Aaron Rodgers era. Aaron Rodgers is going to be 40 years old by the end of this season. They put a lot of money and assets into him, bringing in his friends. They've also added guys like Tyron Smith and other tackles from the Baltimore Ravens. And so they are pot committed this year. And so with that, I feel the Jets are going to do everything they can to get contributors day one into this team. And how do they do that? They expand their first round pick arsenal by using some second rounders and maybe some future rounders to move up in the draft, or they trade for Davante Adams, a guy they're heavily linked to given his history with Aaron Rodgers when they were both in Green Bay. I'm not sure which one they'll do. I think it's going to be the first round pick because they did just sign Mike Williams, who was recently cut by the Chargers. But either way, I expect the Jets to make a move to add more impact players day one for Aaron Rodgers. That all being said, I don't think it's going to make a difference, and I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. But that's a regular season hot take, not an NFL draft hot take. Okay, my second hot take is that the Chargers will trade down multiple times on the first 2 days of the draft. The Chargers are one of those weird teams that actually has a young quarterback of the future, but also isn't very good. Like, this is one of the worst teams in the league last year. They got the 5th overall pick, and they've just traded away their, best player from last year, Keenan Allen, for a 4th round pick. Now, I don't think that was totally a terrible trade for them to make based on the position the team is in and Keenan Allen's age. But at the end of the day, I think with Jim Harbaugh in the fold, the Chargers are going to be going for volume as opposed to best player available. Now, if Marvin Harrison Jr. is available at the number 5 pick, I think they're taking Marvin Harrison Jr. But if not, I think they trade down from that pick, probably with the Vikings, and get 2 first-round picks in that draft, and then maybe trade down one of those picks even further to continue accumulating assets. I think the Chargers are a fantastic candidate to do this. If they don't do it in the first round, I expect them in the second or third round, as Jim Harbaugh always has specific type of guys he likes, and so he'll be willing to play the volume game to try to long-term build around Justin Herbert. At number 3, I have the Chiefs will not take a wide receiver at the 32nd overall pick. If you look at basically any mock draft out there, the Chiefs are taking a wide receiver at 32nd overall, and it makes a ton of sense. This was a massive position of weakness for the Chiefs this season. It's the reason their offense looked almost pedestrian at times during the regular season, and their 11-6 record during the regular season was actually carried by their defense. That all being said, the Chiefs' wide receiver room looks a lot better than it did coming into last year, even right now before the draft. Rashee Rice turned into a really good receiver by the end of last year and will be the wide receiver 1 on this team. They signed Hollywood Brown, who's a perfect fit-in for that speed over-the-top wide receiver role. Yes, he's not Tyreek Hill, but he still fits that role about as good as anyone else can in the NFL. And even though Travis Kelce's going to be 35 years old, you still have Travis Kelce as well as some other guys in the fold. So the Chiefs wide receiver room I don't think is as bad as it has been in history. And so why would the Chiefs go and use the 32nd overall pick on a wide receiver when they could use it on a cornerback, the position I expect them to use this pick on? Why? Well, they just traded away L'Jarius Sneed for a third-round pick from the Tennessee Titans. This team was built off of defense last year and anchored by cornerbacks L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie. And so why not go for a guy who can replace that L'Jarius Sneed role as opposed to getting a wide receiver 3 on this team and receiving option 4 or 5, especially if Jerick McKinnon's back in the fold and actually healthy this coming year. So because of this, I see the Chiefs ending up taking a wide receiver maybe in the mid rounds, 2, 3, or 4, and going for a cornerback at 32nd overall. But again, pretty hot take. My number 4 hot take, I have the Raiders not drafting a QB in the first 2 days of the NFL draft. The Raiders are widely connected to drafting a quarterback. There are 6 teams that are considered quite quarterback needy. There's the Bears, the Commanders, the Patriots, the Broncos, the Vikings, and the Raiders. It has a voice crack there. And I expect all of those teams to take a quarterback in the first round, not just in the first 2 days, except the Raiders. See, the Raiders are head coached by Antonio Pierce, and Antonio Pierce kind of seems like the type of coach who's going to say, you know what, I want to build a team and a culture before I bring in a quarterback. They already have Aiden O'Connell, who was a mid-round pick in 2023 and didn't do bad in year 1 at quarterback. It's why they only have the 13th overall pick, even though that team is pretty void of a lot of really talented players outside of, Davante Adams and Max Crosby. And then they also signed Gardner Minshew during the offseason. And so you usually only carry 2 QBs, and I don't see a reason why you sign Gardner Minshew when you already have Aiden O'Connell, who did a decent job last year, at least good enough to be a starting quarterback in this league or have an opportunity to be moving forward, similar to what Sam Howell was with the Commanders last year. And Antonio Pierce is going to want to build around the quarterback position and eventually find the quarterback, as opposed to just thrust a quarterback into a team that has basically no weapons, especially if they trade away Davante Adams, which they're expected to try to do. So all that being said, I could see a world where the Raiders focus on building their team out in the first few rounds and maybe draft a quarterback in rounds 4 through 7 just in order to fill out the practice squad or to fill out the overall roster, having a third string quarterback. But I don't expect them to go for a quarterback in the first 3 rounds. Again, hot take. And my final hot take of these 5 hot takes is that the Minnesota Vikings will trade Justin Jefferson during the draft. Now, this is probably the spiciest take of all because Justin Jefferson is arguably, if not definitively, the top wide receiver in the NFL. Yet, even still, I have the Vikings trading him away. Now, let's think about why they might do that. Well, the Vikings lost Kirk Cousins and Danielle Hunter, 2 of their best players in free agency this past year. They have to deal with a Bears team that has 2 top 10 picks, Montez Sweat, Jalen Johnson, and a ton of other assets that they've been building for years. A Lions team that went to the NFC Championship this past year and only looks to be getting better. And a Packers team who a lot of people are considering one of the best teams coming into this year and one of the prohibitive favorites in the NFC after what Jordan Love did with that team this past year. And so if you're the Vikings, you're not really in a position to compete right away. You kind of need to undergo a bit of a rebuild, get a new quarterback, and you don't know if Justin Jefferson's going to want to re-sign with you. You don't know if J.J. McCarthy or whomever they might pick at quarterback in this year's draft is going to be good enough for Justin Jefferson to say, yeah, I'll re-sign with Minnesota. And so why not go out and trade Justin Jefferson away? This is not unprecedented. Look at what the Tennessee Titans did, trading away A.J. Brown for a first and a third. And most people look back on that trade and think the Eagles won it, even though they traded a first and third to acquire A.J. Brown. And so thinking about it like that, the Vikings could probably get a first and a second, maybe even 2 firsts in exchange for Justin Jefferson, a package that's basically unprecedented for a non-quarterback. And given they could probably get 2 firsts, you might say, oh, well, why don't the Vikings just hold him and then franchise tag him? Well, if Justin Jefferson is worth 2 first-round picks, a team can still sign Justin Jefferson next offseason and be willing to trade 2 first-round picks if the Vikings end up franchise tagging Justin Jefferson, assuming it's the non-exclusive franchise tag, that is. And so I just see a world where if the Vikings don't have a contract done with Justin Jefferson at the time of the draft, why not try to trade him? Why not try to go out and get 3 first-round picks or 2 first-round picks because you traded up to get a quarterback in this draft? plus 2 first-round picks in next year's draft and jumpstart your rebuild thanks to moving on from Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins and build a really good team from the ground up, as opposed to trying to do this rebuild on the fly, which always ends up just going terribly for 95% of teams. But guys, those are my 5 NFL draft hot takes. I hope you enjoyed them. Let me know in the comments what you think are some of the hot takes you have for this year's NFL draft. I'd love to discuss. Again, apologies for my voice. Hopefully it'll be better by next video. Either way, I'll see you all next time. Peace!